You're listening to episode 104 of the Smaller Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman. So this one, 104, was actually meant to be episode 100. It's part of the 100th episode celebration, but due to coronavirus, I had a bit of a reshuffle. So instead of the What I've Learned from 100 podcast being 98, it got moved to 100, and instead of this being 102, it got moved to 104 because we had one about working from home during this lockdown period, which was much more relevant for now. And the great thing is, this podcast works anytime. This is looking at the 3 most downloaded episodes that I've had, and ones that you have clearly loved. I mean, I should say, as I'm looking at these stats now, I've got my hosting information up here. They're very close at the top, very, very close at the top, which is great to see, actually. It's lovely to see how much you're enjoying the podcast, and it's also lovely to see how much older episodes keep being listened to, which is brilliant. So I have got the top 3 here. I'm not going to do them in order because it's not like we're rating people at all, and all have been brilliant, and they're very close, actually. So I'm going to talk about the top 3 podcasts which you have listened to over the last 100 podcasts. If you want to listen to these in full, these episodes, and I think you should, they're really good. There'll be show notes about them too, but also you can find, if you are listening on iTunes or if you're listening on Spotify, if you just scroll back, I'm going to give you the dates, which I've just realised because I use an American hosting platform. The first 2 numbers are different, as in they put the month, then the date, then the year, not as we do in England and put the date, then the month, then the year. So the chance of me getting this wrong are very, very high. So hold on to your hats, as we could be in for a bumpy ride. So the first one I want to talk about is Gracie Tyte. Her podcast called What It's Like to Be an Equestrian Influencer with Gracie Tyte, which was put out on the 10th of the 6th, 19. I'm pretty sure that's the right way around. Is a really lovely episode. Gracie's an absolute superstar. You might know her better as Pony Nuts on Instagram and on YouTube. She's also got an extras account on Instagram, and she's lovely. She's got a massive following, a growing following, and her content is brilliant. It's very honest, it's very open, it's very engaging, it's very funny, I have to say. Things I was watching a load of stories the other week about custard, which did make me chuckle, and she's an absolute superstar. But more than just being lovely, she's very, very switched on. She understands social media. She understands how to manage people, how to manage the way people interact with her, which is so, so useful. And actually, one of the snippets I'm going to share with you talks about this a bit as well. And in addition, she does amazing things for the brands that she works with. She works with a number of different brands. If you go to her account, you'll see. She also works with Albion. It's a brand that I'm connected with. And she also was involved in the big equestrian giveaway that Albion did at the end of last year and was such a fab supporter of it. So huge love for Gracie here. I'm a big Gracie fan. I'm a big Pony Nuts fan, and I'm really excited to share these 2 clips with you that I think are a really good example of why Gracie is so fab. So the first clip I'm going to share is all about how Gracie shows up online, polished or not, and also the value of just showing up and being your authentic self.
So you have really grown your following by sharing your story, the highs and the lows, not the polished version. And social media gets such a lot of stick for, showing the highlight reel and all the shiny. But actually, you found your followers liked that, but also really liked the real aspects.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's as you said, a lot of stick around it for being too polished, like people getting false representations of what they should be like. But I really try and keep my account away from that, because I agree it can be really damaging to especially young people's mental health, and I've seen personally how it can affect other people, like being surrounded by perfect images the whole time. So the whole time I'm saying if things went wrong, then I'm very truthful about it. I won't hide about it. And yeah, sometimes I make excuses for myself, but it's never to the point where I'm like lying or photoshopping. I don't photoshop photos or anything ridiculous like that. What I post on my account is the raw images, it's the raw videos from raw moments in my life, sometimes when things haven't gone well, but also when things have gone well, and then it's just an all-rounded view of it.
And which, I know you said about you had a lot of, you know, when you first started to think, well, hang on a minute, I'm onto something here, was when your pony was being a little bit wicked. Do you tend to get a better response to the ones where it's not quite worked out well? Or now, because you've got such a great engaged following, are they also really happy to share in your successes and your wins as well?
Yeah, actually, yeah, the more it's snowballed and the bigger it's got, I have found that people do like seeing the successes as well. So, for example, this weekend I came 5th in a BE 100, and it was my first time getting placed in a BE 100, and everyone was so happy for me, and I had messages and people being really happy and loads of comments on the post, and it was a really high engagement post. And sometimes I might post a fail and it might get less than what a success post might get. And I don't know if that's just because now it's not so many times just the fails getting on the explore page, it's other things as well. Yeah. And that may be why, but people still love the fails, of course, and I try and keep them updated. But now Danny's out on loan, it's obviously a little bit harder, but I just post everything I can.
Now, the next clip is about negativity online, because Gracie and a lot of other influencers as well are subjected to differing amounts of online negativity, whether this is people who are just leaving negative and unpleasant comments, full-on trolling and more. But I loved Gracie's advice on it, actually, so I want to share that clip with you now.
What advice would you give to people who are having issues with people online, whether it's kind of really horrible trolling or much more serious, or much sort of less serious but more kind of needling at you?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think the main thing is there is absolutely no shame in going to tell somebody, or even just taking a break. You can get so caught up in it, and with people constantly needling and saying something, it can all build up and it becomes quite like a stress on you. Like, it feels like you're holding a weight on your shoulders because you're sharing it, but you don't know if you should share it because you're scared of people being mean about it. If you take a break and you just go, look, this is online, this is not real life. I have my family, I'm in a home, I'm happy, and this social media is just something else. It's a hobby. It's what it should be. It's something I do for fun, and that's all it should be. It should never be anything where you're feeling like you cannot do something because of it. Then at that point, you just need to take a break and sit back and say, fine, I won't let them beat me by bowing down to it. Just let them have their moment and then come back, and don't let them get to you, because as you said, they're the ones who are probably having problems. And I always find, actually, one thing I did find is that if you're nice to them, then they have nothing against you. If you message them and you're like attacking them and you're like, take this post down, like, you are a horrible human being for doing this, then they're going to be like, haha, look, we're doing this for the right reason. She's being mean to us, therefore we have every right to be mean back. But if you message them, you go, I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you feel this way about me. I hope you're okay. And if I've done anything to upset you, then please let me know and we can sort this out. Then they go, oh, oops.
It's hard to argue with somebody with that attitude. It's killing them with kindness, isn't it? The whole
kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
And the main thing is telling parents. I definitely think parents, if they're there and they're happy to support you, then they will have your back and they will tell you what the best thing is to do. Because sometimes you need an outside ear and somebody who hasn't seen the whole conversation just say, to make yourself look the best and to make yourself look more mature person, this is what you need to say. Because it's really easy to get angry and then just spew words at them, and then you'll regret that later. But if you've got somebody there who's patting you on the back and saying, look, it's fine, this is what you need to say, then it's so much easier.
Now, the next podcast in the top 3 that I'm going to talk to you about is Olivia's. Now, I'm really thrilled to work with Olivia Towers, and she has recorded a few podcasts with me. But the one that is in the top 3, although just looking down, actually, another one that she's done with me is in the top 10 too, is Meltdown to Mindset Shift with Olivia Towers. And unless I've completely misunderstood what date that was published, it was published on the 30th of the 4th, 19. So the first, if you don't know about Olivia, go and check her out. She's on Instagram, she's on Facebook, she's on YouTube, she's a complete star. obviously I work with Olivia, so I'm slightly biased in me talking about how brilliant she is, but she's fab. She is a lovely rider. She's a lovely person. She's really into mindset and how that affects people. She has got beautiful horses that she works incredibly hard on. Wilf and I have got something going on. I just got to say that, put that out there. But she's got a beautiful yard of beautiful horses that she does work insanely hard on. And doing amazing things. She's a real good egg, and she's one I would definitely urge you to follow, whether you are a dressage fan or whether you're a rider or an equestrian or just someone who's looking to improve their mindset. Olivia is definitely one for you to follow. So the first clip I'm going to share with you is about the regionals and how this was a real turning point for Olivia.
I remember it was literally, I just started to change. I was just thinking about just starting to change my mindset around. I kind of knew that I was struggling with it. And I went there and I had the biggest meltdown in the warm-up. Like, it had happened before, but this one was really poignant. And I was in the warm-up and my mum was like, you're in next. And I always describe it like I'd be in the warm-up, and this had happened a lot. It was like this mist had descended and I was just in full-blown panic.
Oh, wow.
And I was... Like, the thing is with panicking on a horse is they pick up on it. So I was getting tighter and tighter. The horse was getting tighter and tighter. And then the sad thing about when someone's nervous or worried is that it comes out in them looking like a bit of a diva, or like it's very hard to say, oh, that person's just really stressed or upset. Like, people don't do that. They look at you and go, you're a brat.
Yeah.
So I was going around and my mum was like, come over here. And I was like, what? And she was like, everyone's saying like what a brat you're acting like, and that of course like hit me really hard. Then I got even more insecure and even more upset and even more stressed. So this warm-up turned into like the baptism of fire. Like, it was the worst thing ever. And then the steward was like, you've got to go in now. And I was just like, oh, will do. And it was awful. Anyway, I ended up going in and the test was like mediocre. It wasn't great. I made mistakes and I was just mortified. Like, I came out and I remember my mum was there and Emma, who was there helping us, and they were like, it wasn't that bad. And I was just like crying. And I felt like such a failure. I felt like I'd failed my horse. I felt like I'd failed my mum. I felt embarrassed. I felt like everyone was looking at me like, you have all these incredible horses. Like, why are you acting like such a diva?
So it wasn't actually the test not going particularly well. It was actually the feelings connected to everything. God, that sounds...
It was everything. I know, and I think it's like, look, it wasn't this one test. It was a build-up. It had been happening all of my life. It just hit this like massive, like kind of it hit this point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. So we came back from that show, and I was down in the garden. I was just crushed. And the thing is, you can look at someone and be like, woe is me, like this poor like little rich kid that has all these amazing horses, like she just is having a breakdown because her pony won't do what she wants it to do. But the thing is, like, I knew all that. I knew I should have been more grateful. I knew I shouldn't have been this emotional about this. Like, I'm blessed to the fact that I have 2 legs and I can walk and I have a roof over my head and I have water. But it just didn't stop I felt even worse for that because I felt like I wasn't using this amazing opportunity.
So you're putting even more pressure on yourself.
Yeah, which was like mounting it up to be even more. And then me and Mum had completely fallen out because I used to think it was because she would be so, she'd just think I wasn't doing well enough. But what it was really is, like, now looking on it in reflection, it was that she was looking at her daughter like tearing herself apart and just being so upset all the time. Like, that's not fun for a mum to watch either. No. So me and Mum weren't talking. We were like really struggling. And then Laura, who was our head girl, she was kind of like in the middle of it, and she's like, right, we need to all talk about this. And I was meant to be going to one more regionals, and Mum was like, that's it, like, we're pulling the plug, we're not going, you're not riding there, you're not competing anymore. And it was like, in that moment, I was like, I kind of realised that was the worst thing that could happen, is me not being able to actually compete. Like, why am I stressing out about a circle going wrong or a change going wrong? Like, look at how lucky you are to actually compete.
And as before, actually, as with Gracie's podcast, I also want to share a little clip about negativity aimed at Olivia.
I think what a lot of people do is they lack the understanding of why. Like, so they lack the understanding of psychology and why humans do certain things. It's all actually very, when you listen to it, it makes it a lot easier to understand why someone has come at you in a nasty way. So there's actually a lady, she's done a TED talk, and it was a podcast I was listening to called Marissa Peer, and she explains about why people criticize each other. So say someone criticized you about your weight, they're like, you're fat. It's actually because they've got an insecurity about their weight. If they were secure in themselves, they wouldn't need to attack you about you. It's because they feel insecure, they're pushing it onto you.
Okay.
Which actually makes sense, because things I'm insecure about, I look at other people and I'd go, ooh, you know.
I see what you mean.
It's a hard thing to kind of say about yourself, but the things like that I have been insecure about in the past is definitely things that I see in other people. And then once you start understanding that, you don't, like, say someone comes at me and they're like, well, I think, you know, you're rubbish at this or you're rubbish at that. I'm like, okay, like, I know, like, science has proved and, like, psychology has proven that that's not my problem. You're reflecting your issues onto me. And also, I always look at it like everyone's allowed their opinion.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I think on social media, some people shouldn't maybe be voicing that.
Yeah, but
quite the way they do.
The best way someone's described it to me is everybody is doing their best in life, whatever they're doing. So they're doing their best in life for where they're at, or their maturity level, or their, you know, where they're at. Like, nobody sets out to be a bad person.
No, that's a fair point.
Like, whoever they are, whatever they've done, and I, like, to extremes of, like, really bad things. Nobody set out to be a nasty person. Like, certain things have happened, and especially when you say about people like, why don't they just pull themselves together? They can't.
That's the least helpful thing, though. Someone who's got anxiety or depression, having the pull yourself together line.
Yeah, it's just where they're at. So, like, I always look at it as everybody is trying their best.
And last but not least, in the top 3, I want to talk to you about Megan Elphick. And her podcast is called Being a Producer and Influencer with Megan Elphick, aka Elphick Event Ponies. We also had Megan's amazing mum, who you might know better as Hobbit or Adventures of Hobbit, who joined in with the podcast too, which was lovely. I'm very lucky to work with Megan. She actually lives just down the road from me. She's lovely, very, very funny. Lovely girl, lovely horses. Oh God, how old am I? She's a lovely lady, lovely horses, really good cake, and big fan of Megan. So if you don't follow her, do. She's great fun, and her content, her Instagram stories, her YouTube is just a lovely feel-good channel. It does share the highs and lows, but there's a lot of content in there that will no doubt uplift you and make you smile. I'm actually recording this when I've just watched their version of Mr. and Mrs., which was blooming brilliant, so go and have a look at that. So the first snippet I want to share with you is about how Megan got started with Instagram and how it's grown. What made you start using social media?
It was a weird one. I always had a social media account for my horses, mainly because it's not really that cool to have loads of horsey pictures on your Instagram while you're at sixth form. So I kind of set up a separate account, didn't tell my friends about it so that I could fulfill my horsey posting needs without anyone seeing.
Without annoying all your friends.
Yeah. But then, bizarrely, I actually lost my first account. It was on like 5,000 followers, I think, and I ended up losing it while I was on holiday.
Oh.
And then I went for a while without a horsey account. I was like, I don't need one. You know, I'm 18 now. I'm cool enough to not have one. And then I went to uni, and first year of uni, I was just really struggling not seeing the horses every day. And it was kind of this sort of outlet for me. I started another account so I could be around horsey people and like talk to horsey people and post horsey things. Because I was in a flat with 6 other people that had probably never even touched a horse in their life.
Yeah, because you went to uni in Liverpool, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it was a long way from home. It was 3.5 hours.
Gosh. Yes, so it's not even like you can pop back for a horsey fix, is it?
No.
That's quite a way.
That's kind of why I started the new account, and it just kind of rolled from there, really, and got bigger and bigger.
And the second snippet is all about how she did have a different, let's say, badminton grassroots experience to the one that she predicted, and how perhaps being dumped at a fence on the badminton grassroots course was indeed a turning point in her career. how long have you had when did you go to Badminton Grassroots? Was it last year?
That was last May, yeah.
Right, okay. So you haven't actually had your YouTube for that long at all?
No, I've had YouTube for a year.
Which is amazing. That's an incredible following.
Yeah, it did go up really quickly. Tell you what helped was falling off at badminton. People loved that. I do think that was the making of me.
Not to be recommended. Don't throw yourself off the horse at badminton.
She didn't think that at the time.
No, but looking back, possibly the best thing that ever happened. No, I'm joking. I would have rather got round. But I think people were suddenly like, oh, I can relate to this girl, because if I'd gone to badminton and I'd won and it had all been perfect hunky-dory, people would be like, well, that doesn't really happen. That's not happening to me. But going all that way, and like I built up so much on social media, and I was like, oh, I can't wait. It's been my dream for 10 years.
Which was true.
Which was all true.
Yeah.
To fall off at fence 9 and sit on the floor of badminton crying. I think people were like, yes, I can relate to that girl.
But relatability is such a big thing on social.
Oh, definitely.
You know, we see so many of these feeds where people show their absolutely beautifully polished life, and in any sector, you know, you see people with beautifully gleaming white horses in the middle of winter, and my pieboard looks like a mudboard at the moment. And you kind of think, oh, I'm doing something wrong.
Yes.
Or, you know, you see mummy bloggers and their kids are absolutely squeaky clean, and mine are literally colouring themselves in chalk. Yeah, their kitchens are immaculate. They don't have mud on their boots. And you think, when you see so much of it, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So showing that relatable side, you know, we do all get decked in slightly embarrassing places.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Well, I think early on, Meg decided that she was going to show the true story.
Yeah.
You know, sort of warts and all. So we've tried to be quite disciplined, and it hasn't been easy, I have to say. You know, when things go wrong, the last thing either of us want to do
is expose it all on social media.
But we've been sort of quite disciplined about doing that, and I think it's been very hard for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is challenging, but then it is really rewarding, because especially because I produce so many young horses, and I think it's really important to show the horrible phases you go through with them, because there are so many, and they are like, you just want to bang your head against a wall and you feel so useless. And that's after I've done it for 15 years, sort of, you know, on and off. So I think it's important to show that young horses do have these horrible phases, because so many times you see these 4-year-olds like trotting around perfect on the bit, and it's like, oh, they did their first double clear today, and my 4-year-old's got its head stuck in the air and like feels horrible. So I think it's important that people see that they do go through that phase, because these perfect ones will still be going through that phase. It's just not shown.
So before I wrap this up, just to remind you, go over and listen to all the episodes in full. All the links are going to be in the show notes. Sorry, there are going to be links to all the podcasts there, and also links to where you can find these fab people online. I would absolutely love it if you would screenshot, share to stories, and tag us all. What did you love about this podcast? What snippets have you enjoyed? Which podcast have you liked the best? You know, I'd love to know this. A massive thank you to all of you for listening to all of these podcasts. There are so many amazing ones coming through as well. And I feel that all these 3 ladies are going to need to have a revisit based on how much you loved them. So hopefully they'll see this as throwing down the gauntlet and coming for another chat on the podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week. We'll catch up next time. If you are an equestrian and you would like a little bit more support with your social media and with growing your accounts, don't forget that I do have a rider course called Social Supercharged Riders. This course works through 3 different main pillars, from content and how to create it, down to how to supercharge your content. It's also got an insanely good discount section, interviews from brands to help you understand what they need when they work with people, and also a Facebook group and the opportunity to be part of the NFU Countryside Equestrian Review panel that I run, and we review products each month. So come on over, find out more about this. Go to my website, it's in the Work With Me section, or feel free to send me a DM or an email and I'll tell you all about it. Thanks so much for listening.